That's right. We are smashing out some books this next 6 weeks in anticipation of Netflix's brand new series, Shadow and Bone. So we are reading Shadow and Bone. Last week we started it. We're finishing it this week. We've got 2 more after that. What's up? My name is Maude. Thank you so much for joining us this month. This is Nerdist Book Club. We are reading the whole Shadow and Bone trilogy. I'm super excited about the show. We're going to play the trailer, and I'd love to announce my beautiful co-hosts because I missed you both. Rachel and Hector, a big hello to you. Hi.
I missed you too.
Yeah, we missed you lots last week. I mean, the show was still great because Rachel and I are awesome. Yeah, I did. I made a pun. I forgot what it was. What was the pun?
Oh, yeah, it was really
good. It was really good.
I was bummed because I don't have that quick-wittedness to be able to pun right back, and your absence was felt the whole show, but especially in that moment.
It really felt like punishment that you weren't here, Maude. So we're happy that you're back.
Brain works this way.
Back on in here. It was really interesting, though, Hector, to hear your take on YA, and I almost feel like I have to apologize. Two more books.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
But yeah, now that we've read the first one, I mean, we usually go through and get everyone to rank. And now that we've finished the first book, let's everyone give Shadow and Bone. Do we go around and rank it?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm going to be weird. I don't remember what I rated it when I read it the first time, but I will say that, which was only a few months ago, my memory is crapola. But I think I gave it like, you can't do half stars. Maybe I gave it a 4, but I would give it a 3.5, which might surprise you because I was like, let's read these books. But I overall like the series. The second one is my favorite. And also they're making the show. And I think this plus the spin-off books are really great. So 3.5 for me on the first book.
Aaron gives it an 8 out of 10. Jimmy gives it a 7 out of 10. Lisa's giving it a 3.5, 4-star. Madeline's giving it 4 out of 5. Clever Girl says 4 out of 5. Drew Scorn says 6.5 out of 10. Nerdist jumping in with a 3 out of 5. But I like it a bunch. 8 out of 10 over here. Hector, what about you?
3 out of 5 stars from Hector because I liked it.
You liked it?
I liked it.
You liked the second part?
The second half was much better. As soon as we got the heck out of that dang palace and
I know
shit started to go down, I was like, now we're squawking. Also, a lot of people in the chat are saying nice shirt. I have to point out that I'm wearing an awesome Geek Bomb Punderwear item. Maude, if you wanted to discuss that, I'm a man in my 30s and I'm as happy as I've ever been with this t-shirt. So people should get it.
That's such a great sell. That is it's on T from punderwear.net. Thank you, Hector. I'm so glad you love it. It looks very, very great on you.
Thank you.
You haven't
I've always been told my body reminds people of like a large thing of a construction site. So I think this shirt's perfect for me. Yeah, definitely. Just a lot of iron bars and ladders and barrels. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
I don't know. That's my body.
Body positivity.
Body positivity. Your body looks like the Donkey Kong level. I am still waiting for the chat to remind me what pun I said last week because I completely forgot. So somebody drop that in there as well. But I really like the second. There it is. Thank you. Nathan saying Hector's built like a brick house. I really like the second half of the book. I think that my not issues, but the things that I'm not interested in a YA trope sort of a setting were really moved away from pretty like overnight. Like basically as soon as she bailed, I was like, oh, this has now turned into much more of an epic fantasy adventure.
Yeah.
You know, the characters were much more like there was just so much more urgency in the story, and the decisions that the characters ended up making had some real lasting effects. I still think that overall, I'm giving it a 3 stars, and I'm really looking forward to book 2 and 3, and I'm really looking forward to the show, to see how it all sort of comes together.
I think you're going to.
Yeah.
This is
the set that. Yeah, The setting is set.
Unfortunately, a brag, but it is through work that I've seen the first 2 episodes, and I think you're going to love it. I think the changes that they've made are really great. And I also think we're not getting to the spin-off the first one, the duology that has the best characters. But Hector, if you're enjoying it because they are quick reads, I recommend that you read those 2, the Crows books, at least the first one, just to know those characters before you watch the show or after you watch the show, because they're essentially taking them from a different story and putting them in this one. Cool. But there's a really great quote from the author who we have an interview on Nerdist.com right now that Rosie Knight did with Lee Bardugo, that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is a chosen one story. I like to think some of the tropes are subverted, but it's a very trope-heavy story. Coming out of that, I really wanted to write about characters who were not chosen, the people that the world viewed as expendable, who didn't have the most magical power or a royal birthright or a grand prophecy destiny. I wanted to write about ordinary people who were caught in the crossfire of these sort of grand fantasy stories. And so that shifted the kind of story I want to tell. So I think you would love them. It's sort of like a heist, caper. It's great.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into it because I have a lot of thoughts and like comparisons that I was drawing to different things that I like, whether it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Star Wars or all the different worlds that I'm a big fan of. I was kind of seeing in this sort of second half, but I want to hear Maude's thoughts. Maude, have you read this book before? No, because I know Rachel read it.
No, I've never read this book before. And it's so interesting because like I'm looking at all the comments and the majority of people are saying that the second half is better because you've done the world building, you've established everything, and then the story actually moves. The first half is very trope heavy. The second half sort of abolishes or subverts those tropes. Of course, I love the first half better.
No, I was thinking that you were going to love the first half and be disappointed that they leave. And I was hoping that Hector would like it more when they leave. I don't mind.
Wow.
Just saying.
This is a real Godzilla versus Kong situation here between me and Maude. This is great.
And I say, let them fight.
I thought that they rushed.
And then I walk into the center of the earth. That's from the last movie, not the new one. I haven't watched it yet.
There's
a lot of really great comments on the Darkling too in the chat, which we should talk about. And Ms. Necromancer says that my least favorite trope in the whole book was Zoya. I'm totally over the catty female fighting competitive jealous trope. That was a big problem for me in the my first read through as well. And I think just generally some of the first book overall, but definitely the first half is a little too tropey. And it is her first book, and she clearly, and I think she's grown immensely as a writer. Maude, you should read her book Ninth House, which is like grown up occult school, but like college dark fantasy. Ninth House, it's so good. Lee just read it, he can attest. But the fact that I will say that I think she grows even between the first book and the second book as a writer. Cool. And, that's just really funny that you guys felt exactly the let them fight. Wait,
we completely balanced that. I mean, I don't have a problem with tropes unless it's just so predictable, like I'm reading it and I know exactly what's going to happen. In this particular instance, like they used this smooch to kind of use it as a deterrent so that Alina can let go of her love for this guy that just kind of kept her at arm's distance the entire friendship. And she's feeling something and having that adoration. I think my biggest problem in the first half of the book that I didn't get to discuss with you.
Yeah, I wanted to know all your thoughts.
How grateful Alina was for her appearance to be changed for the better. Initially, she was, begrudging about it. She didn't want features changed. She wanted to be exactly who she was. But then by the middle of the book, she's squealing that Jenya's got the time to be able to do her hair. And I think, again, this is kind of like that Zoya trope of what women are supposed to be, which is the make me as beautiful as you can, because that's where my worth comes from, as opposed to, and then like the whole, she's got something that I don't have, therefore I will destroy her for it. But I thought that when we're trying to understand Alina as a character, it is someone who I personally thought would relish having a broken nose because it tells the story of her gritty childhood, you know, who wears her scars like a badge of honor because they represent something. So to have things like eradicated, it felt a little game, a Hunger Games to me, which is the whole like glutton look prestigious in any particular way. Mm-hmm. But I guess as well, we're starting to have older Lena's exterior kind of broken down and extracted from her so that she can blossom into who she's supposed to be. And that's internally and externally. Mm-hmm. And I do like the fact that she had to let go because she was suppressing who she was for someone else.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Me too.
And realize that she could be her own person. That was fantastic. But then what happens? There's a new sense of vulnerability because she's in charge of her own power and destiny. And so someone swoops in and just is controlling her again. So she's a bit of a, for someone so domineering, she's really a puppet in this.
Yeah, but so I agree with you, Maude. I think the second half is better for all the reasons you listed. I appreciate that. So cool. I'm kidding. No, Maude, you were saying earlier that you felt that the first half was a little rushed, and honestly, I would love to know. Break it down a little bit. Why did you prefer the first half? Why were you disappointed that the characters left the setting of the courtyard and the royal setting and all that thing?
I'm such a sucker for structure and building a fictional, magical establishment of learning. If you're going to put me in there, let me learn. But I noticed that we didn't explore the grounds so much. We didn't have enough sort of relationship with the other students. I like that she was developing the friendship with Jenya, but like we don't really understand court life. We didn't really get into her studies except that she had a pile of books. We didn't spend like a lot of time in the library. We had combat lessons, but we didn't really see what that looked like with other people. I didn't have the biggest understanding of the magic, and I didn't see it in its use all that often, except for clearing snow. I just feel like it was a tip of the iceberg because we were rushing through it all really quickly. But the things that I wanted to learn more about, we didn't ever really get into. She just, would go off and she'd do combat with Bagda, or she'd go to like
who's Madam Hooch, right?
Hooch? Yeah.
What's her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. I love that casting. And we're going to be talking about that because we've got some pictures. And I believe, do we have that image or was that one of the, it was one of the low reses. We're going to be playing the trailer in a little bit as well. So we're going to be talking and comparing. I noticed in the last episode, though, you talked about Alina's casting and that her appearance wasn't necessarily mentioned. Mm-hmm. In chapter 1, it was. She had. Oh. Look at this girl. She is Anna Karana, or whatever her name is. She's got pale skin and pale hair. Yeah, Anakuya. I love names where you have to say the first and second name. They can't just.
Where you last name someone. Because of whatever their importance is. Yeah, well, there was another interview I read that I don't have open right now, but it was about the adaptation. And one of the big changes, besides incorporating other characters, is Alina's backstory. And this is not a spoiler. I guess close your ears if you don't want to know anything. There have been interviews about it, so hopefully it's not a big deal. But in the show, she's going to be half Shu from the Shuhan area of the overall continent. And so that they're such an enemy to Ravka that she already looks different, and she's an orphan, and I do really like her sort of dry wit, and like when she snaps back at people is like my favorite thing. And so I think that's going to also add a dimension of exploring the world more in the show, in the adaptation, but also a layer of the way she looks being a part of her character, but not in the same kind of, I'm a plain Jane heroine who not too ugly, but blossoms later kind of vibe. And I think from what I've seen, it works really well to sort of establish some of her personality traits and what she's experiencing, and really like making the stark divide of how she would grow up being half Shu in Ravka, and then being elevated to Sun Summoner.
I wonder if Leah Lee Bardugo is Bardugo? Lee Bardugo is this like, because she very clearly described her as like all one color, basically just drained of all color, super pale. I was thinking like an Anna Taylor-Joy kind of thing, where she's got
totally. I want to cast Anya Taylor-Joy in literally everything. I love her so much, but
I love having that racial element because we are world building and it ties two regions together, and I think that that's a really fascinating thing to do.
And that's part of the split as well with the fold, that it does separate all of these different areas, and it also ties in some stuff from the spin-offs that are like in Kirch and Ketterdam, which is like this sort of trade merchant, like Atlantic City underbelly area. And that's on the other side of the fold as well. But it's more diverse there. And there are more characters from Shuhan, from Fjerda. And I also like that they're pulling in sort of imperialist nations to vibe with, like clearly Ravka is sort of Tsar Russian inspired, and then Shuhan is sort of imperialist China, and Fjerda is Scandinavia. And I find that really interesting too.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It could have gone very heavy with steampunk, being in this kind of like era and like, that kind of industrialist sort of vibe and feel. But I didn't think I would love, because I'm not as into steampunk kind of vibes, even though I'm reading Mistborn at the moment, which is exactly that. And I didn't know if like the Russian side of it would be a disconnect, like having a protagonist called Alina Starkov. But I really liked it, and I think it really amplified the world building. And I was able to take to it, but it was so easy to listen to. I've nearly finished it twice.
Wow. So wait,
it is
Rachel,
I told you it was fast.
Rachel, really? Are you reading it on
I'm reading it now. I listened to it the first time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I do want to Game Wizard said that it feels very She's All That film, the outcast girl getting her makeover, and suddenly everyone takes her seriously. And I think the adaptation takes into account, what Lee Bardugo feels about her writing. This was written in 2012. There's been many types of changes in writing, in society, and all sorts of things. So it's her chance to work with the showrunner and be able to adapt a lot of the core of this story and the world and everything that we like, but also improve upon it. And I think she will acknowledge, it seems, more than anyone, like here are the things like I wish I had done differently, but all I can do is keep writing stuff and try new things. So I have a big question for everyone. I know that some people in the chat, definitely Miss Necromancer, agree with me, but what do y'all think about Maude?
Thumbs up from me. Thumbs up. Double thumbs up. He's a hunk. He's got a heart of gold. He's a good dude. Let me tell you why. Because I read the whole first half, not really knowing anything or seeing a trailer or anything about the new show. And yeah, I think a lot of characters were a little thin for me. I couldn't quite latch on to some characters, Mal being one of them. Even Alina, I was like, this feels very, it's all like a template. And it's all like, we're all supposed to sort of see ourselves in a lot of these characters and stuff. But then right before we did the episode last week, I watched the trailer. I watched hang on a minute, Miss Penguins. Hang on a minute, Miss Penguin Supreme. I watched that panel that I sent you, Rachel, where it's a lot of the cast talking and stuff. And then I learned this like young, really good looking guy was cast as Mal. And I think he's an actor from the UK. So all of a sudden, when I read the second half, I was hearing, there he is. Look at this guy. Look at that. Look at that.
I will say to my fellow book Mal critics, of which I know there are many, the impossible has happened in the first episode, and I like Mal in the show. So I don't, and I don't like.
What's the argument for against Mal?
I can take that one. I think that this is I think I can. First of all, he's not Ben Barnes. That's number one.
No.
First of all, he's not the Darkling. That's number two. Thirdly, I think that there's a very fair criticism in the chat I saw earlier. Maybe it was Miss Necromancer, maybe it was somebody else, but that Mal, this character, keeps Alina at arm's length. And even though we learn later, he loved her for always, the way that she loved him, they loved each other. He was dating other people and he seemed uninterested in her romantically. And so I can see that reading as like, this guy's a dick. He is maybe emotionally unaware or emotionally, worst case scenario, manipulative of Alina. Like, I completely understand that read. But everything you were saying, Rachel, about like, look, the book came out in 2012. It's a YA book. It's using a lot of tropes. And I'm not trying to knock the tropes, the genre, the age group of the sort of like pitch perfect reader age group, or any of that stuff. And I also feel like, I think it's also fair to say that the books are probably leaning a little bit more towards a woman audience, which is completely fine. Like, I don't think that the book is going out of its way to do stuff that men are interested in. And that's fine. It's completely fine. Not everything has to be for men. Jesus Christ. So all of those things, I think, taken into account. I know that when the books are being adapted for a show, for a modern audience, I can see a lot of that stuff being worked or tweaked or made better. And honestly, even just hearing the guy speak made me kind of flesh him out.
I'm sorry. Never mind. Go ahead. I'm just.
I was going to say that.
Shit.
You need to run.
Is he gonna fall? You got to go save your cat.
He's fine. It's just not as stable as it was, and I thought he was gonna fall, but he's fine now. Anyway, sorry.
I'm just picturing a Merlin style tower of books in your house somewhere.
Kind of. Yeah.
Anyway, I was just gonna say that hearing the guy talk, that I felt like he, in my brain, was made a little bit more flesh and blood and made a little bit more relatable and understandable. Yes, he's hot.
That's the second half of the comment, though.
Lowest bar for being a quality boyfriend. Like, he keeps her at arm's length for a dumbass reason, but it's cool because he's hot.
He's hot.
Yeah, and I forget exactly what the reason was, but I think that if the adaptation, especially because if you're going to go back and actually revisit some of this material, if the story in Shadow and Bone is telling us that Alina never confessed her love for XYZ reasons, then like it stands to.
I understand this. I can't actually go in and be like, I'm so mad at Mal or I'm so mad at Alina, because I've been still in this position. Someone where it's like, I value and cherish the friendship so much.
Yeah.
Something happened, and like, because girlfriend Maude is very different to friend Maude. And if girlfriend Maude isn't what they'd hoped for, and I am speaking from experience, they wooed me and it was everything, and yes, we're going to be great. And then 2 months later, they said, I've made a mistake. It's not worth pursuing to begin with. And that friendship is the most important thing. And that's what Mal was doing.
I'll tell you what, Maude. They did make a mistake. Okay? They did make a mistake.
We know this.
They messed up.
Rich knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Also, I get it recently. But
so I can't get mad at him for that, because when he's like saying and looking at all these other women, and she's not saying,
bothers me, honestly. If I can I say why I don't like Mal? Sorry. Hector's, it's really just because I do think that he was a little oblivious to how he treated her, which understandable, boys, am I right? But it's more so that he is so he feels very overprotective, overbearing, and I just really like that she lets go and finds her power. And so I just wish that had lasted a little longer.
Oh, I see, without needing him.
And him really.
That's what I'm saying about her.
Him tying it. I think, God, my bangs are crooked. That he. that I'll never not see it now. I feel like he feeds on that a little bit. And I don't mean that he's like a bad dude or whatever. I just. But show Mal, very on board. So
Okay.
not just because he's super cute.
Do we want to go over what the first part of the book was like, or should we just jump straight?
No, let's jump into the second part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy with Rachel revealing how she or Maude revealing how she felt about the first section. That's all I wanted to know. I was ready to get caught up, so now we're all caught up.
I liked it.
Yeah. Cool.
So in this section, we kind of find Alina literally blossoming when she opens herself up to this new power of hers. And I love that. And that she has been, minus the she's all that sort of makeover thing, I do love that she's been, yes? Ma'am?
I'm sunbringing. Can you not see it?
Oh, okay. I did not notice that. Yay!
Gosh, tough crowd.
No, I didn't know what I was looking at. I know. Okay, look, I have a hard time. You know who the Darkling reminds me of, though, in terms of archetypes?
Ben Barnes.
That explains a little something.
Oh, Jareth, the Goblin King.
He's an older man who's trying to give her power and then wants to control her and kind of gaslight her into thinking that he's doing all this for her benefit. It's a little Jareth. No one said that my type was healthy.
Yeah.
Just really clarify, and I need to get this straight. The Darkling reminds you of the babe.
What babe?
What babe?
The babe, the power.
What power?
Power of the voodoo.
Voodoo?
You do!
Do what?
Remind me of the babe.
Ooh, maybe I'll watch that tonight.
The best bulge ever in a movie, I think.
Oh, 100%.
An awakening. An awakening for many.
Let me think about that a little longer, but it's up there.
I
Pun
will
intended, but happy about it.
Yeah.
Miss Penguin, I agree with you. I love Jareth, but he's still a poop, a shiny poop. That's also how I feel about the Darkling. I want the Darkling for me. I don't necessarily want him for Alina. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question. Because I don't know. I don't know if I want the answer, but I'm going to. What's that?
Because Nick's Wing is literally describing the plot of Twilight.
Yeah, that's true.
of almost every kind of supernatural, like human love story.
Yeah.
Except I'm a little weird about it.
Yeah.
And I have a question, but
okay. Go.
Did anyone else, when they were reading it, go, "Oh, the Darkling's obviously a bad guy"?
No.
Okay, I really thought from the get-go that, I was like, this guy's too broody to be true. So I'm just gonna feel smug that I immediately was like, of course he's bad.
His name is Darkling.
I know, but that's also his power. But yeah, that's what I thought too.
Listen, on the nose, yeah.
Listen, we're living in a world full of Prince Zuko's and Kylo Ren's. Anything's on the table. I didn't know where the story was going to go. I didn't know what
Zuko.
But I think the biggest difference between those characters and the Darkling is the fact that the Darkling is 200 plus years old, right?
I just love
he's the black heretic, so he's the one who created the Shadowfold, which has been around for a long time. But back to the smooch. There is a confusing smooch with the Darkling, and I will say, reading this section, even though I was like, I'm pretty sure he's bad, I was like, and he's also much older than her, and all of those things. I was like, let them smooch, just let it happen. So she's set to kind of perform with the Darkling at this ball hosted by the king and queen. She wears her black. I also liked this section because it does feel like the unpopular, outcast. Maybe I can teenage me can relate to that, being a little glammed up and wearing her black kefta and the girl who bullies her, which again I think is very one note, but there is a small sense of satisfaction being she's wearing her black kefta, she's this she's a glow up or whatever. And Huh? What?
Who's the bad guy?
Ben, the character that Ben Barnes is playing in the show.
Darkling. What y'all drinking?
Pretty sure I chipped my tooth. I was so excited to drink.
I do love a good drinking game.
Hey, what was the name of that? What was the name of that character who was friends with the characters on DuckTales, and he was a crime fighter at night? What was that character's name?
Darkling?
Yes, Darkwing Duck. Don't take a drink. I said Darkwing, not.
I can do whatever I want.
Okay,
I live alone.
Okay.
No one can stop me.
Who wants to read this comment?
I totally get what you mean, though. I was uncomfortable with the Darkling too. Yeah. I mean, Darkling is also very touchy, which I don't love. Let me read it again. Darkling is also very touchy, which I don't love. I got to take 3 drinks.
This is a good book club.
I know.
Hey,
we have fun.
Hey, everybody watching at home, drink responsibly. Drink responsibly.
Yes, drink responsibly.
Darkling.
But if you want to play with us, come play with us. So Alina is dressed in her black kefta, which only the Darkling wears.
Did you read it? I've got the giggle.
Yes, I am 33 and single with 2 cats, ostensibly drinking wine alone in my apartment. Thank you so much for
in Japan. I'm hopping like, meow.
Not alone. Not alone. Not alone. Not alone. You got us. We're here.
I know.
Sorry. Thanks, Pat.
No, it's fine. It was funny. It was funny, and you're not wrong. So she's got her makeover from Jenya. She looks nothing like this sickly orphan map maker who first arrived. So of course that's when Mal shows up, and they have this huge fight, and Alina leaves in tears. So we talked a little bit about the Darkling Alina romance. Do we have any more? I drank. Do we have any more thoughts on?
Oh shoot.
On the Darkling? There, again.
Okay. I kind of I liked. Well, I'm a bit. If I think about it, my YA heart is like, yay! She's finally got someone giving her the attention that she deserves, and like, she's been elevated into this status, which is not a poor orphan girl, where it's like, she's someone, and that's so lovely, and he sees her. But then to hear things like, it's actually a little bit high school, or like, the guy they warn you about, where it's like, when Jenya's like, everyone feels that way, babes. It's just going to be fleeting. Don't get your heart stuck in. It's not even you. He does this to everyone.
And you're just like, no.
Yeah. Let me know.
Real.
Yeah. But then when Bagda is like, he's had centuries to like craft the art of basically emotional manipulation. It's like, ugh.
Oh,
some men only need some men only need a few years. Yeah.
Start real young. Miss Necromancer also said, I'm glad you reiterated this point, because I didn't know how far back it was, that I said earlier, I love that he's evil and loves it. It's my favorite evil quality. It's way more fun for a villain to just love being evil instead of drowning in angst. And I agree with that. And I think we are now more primed to, me especially, to think like, oh, but maybe there's good in him, or what are you doing?
He's eating food and I want one. So if he passes it off.
I was like, you keep doing that. I was like, what? Are you signaling to me? I don't understand.
That's all I wanted. I just wanted some
Rachel,
snacks.
the signal, Rachel, the signal.
Why is everyone picking on
You guys just got a glimpse of girl board. I'm hungry and you eat. I want it.
Hey,
totally fine. You could steal my fries anytime.
Hate to make everything very American centric. I would love to get everybody's take on this. Maude, yours especially, as being a more of a citizen of the world and coming from Australia.
Liable.
But do you think that when some of these stories of the past few years and even decades, stories that are like mythic, stories that are fantasy, stories that are science fiction, stories that are superhero, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that there is some validity to the theory that like the past 5 to 10 years ish has focused on a lot of villains, characters like the Joker getting a $1 billion movie that explores the character psychology and tries to sympathize, a lot of like villain sympathizing that was happening in a lot of big stories is because of the fact that politically the United States was kind of getting to a pretty dark place, elected Donald Trump, was going really hard in one direction, that people I think were coming to terms with that and being like, well, we're not the bad guy. We can't be the bad guy. So all of a sudden we were subconsciously interested in the kinds of stories that were about that, versus now I think people are kind of hungry for a villain that's just purely evil. Like it's like the pendulum has sort of swung in the other direction, maybe because politically things are different in the United States and how that affects the world.
It's interesting. Okay, so I think that you are talking pop culture in a way that I absolutely understand, and the evidence does sort of like suggest that the exploration of the villain, and I love that the exploration of the villain isn't that the villain ever thinks it's the bad guy. I think that's a very realistic thing, like someone's doing something that they truly believe is good, but it just negatively affects other people. And it's like, well, who gave you that right to make that decision that affects those other people negatively?
Yeah,
I think that there are two types of people with the Joker movie. And that is someone that was so relieved to see depression explored in a movie.
Sure.
And then me, the type of person that says this is dangerous. And it was so interesting because I remember being online being like, we are enabling consequence. Like we are removing, consequence of
right.
feeling bad. Therefore, I'm allowed to hurt others because I feel hurt. And I was
good point.
Perpetuating that. And then someone wrote back to me and said, you've never been depressed, have you? And I was like, no. And that movie for them, they were like, I loved that I got to see.
You're talking about the Joker?
Yeah.
They loved that they got to see that despair, that weight of like.
Say that again, Rachel?
No, sorry. I realized I was interrupting you, and I'm deeply
sorry. We're having this conversation. So yeah, it's super interesting that it was like polarizing, and like everyone who was team, this is dangerous, we shouldn't be talking about this, this is wrong, had never had that sort of like angst. But at the same time, we are in an age where school shootings are happening all the time. Shootings are happening all the time. And we are glorifying sort of like the actions. And it's like, I am absolutely okay talking about the feelings because the feelings are real. But what you do with the actions and the consequences of those actions, glorifying that, to me, is unacceptable. Because by calling it a bad day, we are giving people an out for doing incredibly unforgivable things due to a feeling of despair.
It's just interesting how that pop culture pendulum does swing in different kinds of things. I know that 10 years ago, the biggest show on television was Breaking Bad, which is about a guy just going to the darkest places possible in that whole path. And then in the past,
is the villain.
Right, yes, very interesting, huh? Misogyny. And then in the past year, at least what I was seeing online and a lot of people really excited about was the show Ted Lasso, which seems like it's the literal opposite of something like Breaking Bad, where it's just like positivity, it's just about like being good for good's sake. Like it's just very interesting when those kinds of things, those kinds of trends are sort of happening. Even in the sort of superhero world, post 9/11, everything was very Jason Bourne, very dark, very, the Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight movies, I think really encapsulated that era. It's a very post-Bush, post 9/11 like trilogy. And then the Marvel movie started to come out more, and then something like Guardians of the Galaxy happened, and people were really like, okay, more of this, more Ant-Man, more, Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, things that were kind of more colorful and bright in that genre. So I just think it's interesting that like, maybe, and I don't know what's going to happen to the character DL in the future books. I don't know what's going to happen to DL. But I wonder how the Ben Barnes depiction is going to come across. If it's just going to be evil for evil's sake and very delicious and kind of swimming in it, or if the show is going to attempt to also like sympathize with that character a little bit. So, yeah.
I agree with this as well, by the way. I agree with Knox.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And as someone who has been clinically depressed since they were a preteen and also warned people about that movie, the two can exist at the same time. And I do agree that there was a comment earlier too about sort of the sort of edgelord type that identifies with the more violent depictions of what mental illness can look like. Most of the time does not. But I will say that, yes, that one. And I will say that I think the bad boy is such a trope of the, like, I can fix him, or he's still good in him. All of those types of things that I think if you are into that trope, then you want to hope that this character, even though they're revealed to be evil, that there will be some sort of redemption there. And it's very clear in this book that that's not to be found. He does think he's doing the right thing. And I do want to talk about that ending, but I will say that, we can talk about that. But I do want to kind of dive into as well, like Bagra reveals all of these things, that he's actually the Black Heretic. She's his mom, which is that one I did not see coming a mile away. And I thought that was a really great.
And that he was waiting for a sun summoner that can keep the Volcra at bay so he can enter the fold and become even more powerful than he is now. And also, I don't know if it was in this section or if it was in the first section, but the revelation that the Volcra was also like previous people is also very sad.
That was in the second half.
Yeah.
Isn't that horrible? We're talking about consequences again here, where it's like he thought that that amount of power by creating the rift would be okay, but he didn't understand the consequence. And that was that sort of darkness turned humans, women, and children into the Volcra. Yeah.
Not cool. And then also, I was a little, when all of this information was happening from Bagra, it was a really well-written chapter because I was not uninterested. I was invested. Even if I didn't love or connect to elements of the first section, I was when this was happening, because again, I think this sense of urgency was going down. Where I was like, oh, are we moving? What's going on? Is Alina like, are we bailing? Okay, I'm with Alina. Let's go. Let's do this. I was a little bit confused in the first few times it was sort of discussed, but the fact that DL was seeking the Stag's amplifier to help him control Alina, I was a little like, okay, I'm not quite sure how the mechanics of that thing work, but then each time they sort of touched upon it again. And by the time we caught up with Mal and I knew what the mission was to try to find the Stag before DL and his forces did, I was like, okay, I get it. So I like that section and everything after. Again, just to reiterate, I actually really enjoyed the pacing of the second section. And I felt that those characters that were set up in the first half to have Alina plucked from that and to be thrown into the wilderness basically and have the book, and maybe it was because we're coming off of Name of the Wind, you know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting comparison because the sections in Name of the Wind that I enjoyed, opposite of Maude, Godzilla versus Kong, or when Quoth was like, all right, I got to leave school. I got to go do this thing. Like, and it just became a mission, a side quest. That was interesting stuff to me. So I liked this section leading up to the end. Alina gets caught, y'all, gets captured back. Mal is now used as like a bargaining chip, right? DL is using Mal to keep Alina in line. And
the Stag collar, this like, bone chains.
I believe it was John Adams in the chat a while back whose gripe with this section was Mal was so focused on when they're caught in this moment, Alina's like, all right, kill me. And he's like, no. And it's like, kill the Stag.
Oh, yeah.
So I was frustrated in that moment where I'm like, the Stag's just there. If you kill
would
that,
it work?
You have the power over it.
Would it work though?
Sorry?
No, it would. She would have received that power, but I do like that she ends up also having control over the amplifier because she spared its life first. She could have just killed it, but I do like that element of her character, that she sees this creature that she knows she has to kill and she can't do it. And it is a good, I think, parallel to the end of the book after she's captured and the Darkling
Oh, dang it.
not sorry. The DL, Ben Bon, as Tumblr folks will know, Ben Bon.
Oh, I love that.
That's his name from a million years ago on the internet. That when they're on this like skiff in the shadow fold. Wow, I just was gonna say dark fold. And she has this choice, and she makes a really questionable choice to, not everyone who was involved in that meeting was evil. They were, there were ambassadors, their people were there. They were invited by the DL to what they thought was him proving this power, but not basically as a threat. Like we have peace now, which is also what I'm the most interested in. His sort of like, is he a villain with a point, even though he goes about it the very, very wrong, evil way?
Well, I see the Darkling's point.
Maude.
As seeing that, I didn't mean to, but it was handy.
It happened. I mean, we're all adults. If you don't want to drink, don't drink.
Oh.
Don't do it.
You do not have dinner again.
Defy the rules.
That's why I had a bunch of snacks. I had some chili pineapple tidbits. They're delicious.
I found chocolate. I found all the chocolate. But what I was saying is, oh no, where was I going with it? We spoke about chocolate and chili pineapple. I lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
I completely forgot. The DL. Damn it, Rachel.
You don't have to. No one's gonna hunt you down.
Well,
you know more than anybody how powerful peer pressure is. It's real. It's real.
I'm literally telling. Okay.
What were we just talking about?
We're talking about on the between the stag and the ambassadors and the DL's sort of master plan.
I was talking about the fact that I don't think the DL's truly evil at all. I see him witness ineptitude. The king, and it's so not hard to turn the court against the king because he has defiled, he has embarrassed, humiliated, taken advantage of half the court. And I truly believe that like if someone continues to prove ineptitude, and we could do a whole hour on this with Game of Thrones, but you need to remove someone who's in a position of power, that is abusing that position of power or isn't doing a good job of it. This is why lineage is such a freaking nightmare, because if you're born into the role, you're not the best person for the job. So the Darkling's been around for ages, and he's faked his own death.
Dang it.
Sorry, Brenda. I'm saying you don't have to drink because I really don't need everyone to drink. But if I want to drink,
want to be an enabler.
Yeah. The good news is we're at home right now, so it's okay.
That's true.
We're not at a studio.
It's a moot point. It's like a cow's opinion. It's just moot.
A moot point.
But moot. I agree with you in that it made me think about if he hadn't just decimated these innocent villagers in his attempt to prove his point.
Thank you.
I think that you could easily make the argument that, hey, expanding the shadow fold a little bit, though not great, not super great, if it didn't hurt anyone and you could see his power that way because he has the sun summoner, and that's how he basically like blackmails everyone else into keeping the peace. Yep. I don't have necessarily a problem with that. If no one else, if you're a galaxy brain, like hundreds of year old person, that's great.
I love it.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
Yeah,
That's true.
Sorry,
but
you're
like,
on.
I can see someone that old who watched kings come and go.
I get it.
But because it's like, oh, what's a few towns of people? Sorry, can't be with you on that one. But Alina also makes a choice to save Mal.
Yeah.
Over all of the people on that boat. And I understand
that nepotism is real.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think that the back to it's sort of because she doesn't kill the stag, and there's this part of her that is still kind of not pure, because I hate that word, especially when used to describe women, but she does have this goodness and doesn't want, she sees this thing that she's in awe of and wants to respect it. But when she reclaims her power the second time, when she realizes that she's got this amplifier and she can control it too, I find that really interesting that she, does make that decision. I cannot judge. I've never been put in any kind of position like that to choose, my one true friend and love over, a handful of people who, but I do think that's a turning point for her character, that she wouldn't even kill a majestic but animal.
Yeah.
And then is pushed to this point where it's like, well, I'm all in. We got to get out, we got to get out of this. And I found that super interesting.
I agree. Great comment earlier from Game Wizard. Maude, you highlighted it. The king is basically the Tsar or French king combined. Country is poor and starving, and you and your people are getting fat on such rich food. Of course, a revolution is inevitable. I think that was also very interesting as well. In the script here, Rachel, you've got a question. Where do you think the series is heading next? What I was going to say was that the ending of this book gave me some Star Wars vibes, because it felt like a little bit of a combination between like the ending of The Force Awakens and then the ending of The Last Jedi. The ending of The Force Awakens is a great cliffhanger where I kind of knew, I'm like, okay, the next movie is going to have to deal with Luke Skywalker and we're going to go. But the end of The Last Jedi, I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen next, because that movie took out apparently, and because that movie took out Snoke, to just positioned the characters in a way where I was like, I don't know what could
it felt like
happen.
A conclusion.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this feels like that with Alina and Mal on the run, and yet I kind of know, I have a feeling of what the next, I'm hoping that the DL gets taken down. I'm hoping that the whole kingdom gets saved in some ways and that the world is saved. Really cool thing is I opened up the next book, Siege and Storm, and like in the beginning, in the front here, they have that little map, that little world map. And what's really cool is it this one, this map like opens up the world even more and goes beyond the true sea. And I'm like, I like that the second book is maybe going to open up the world a little bit. So anyway, I think it was
a favorite in the trilogy by far. Yeah. So I'm excited, and it introduces some characters that I'm excited. Everyone who's read it will know who I'm talking about. But I also
speaking of those characters, did we check out the trailer?
Yeah,
let's do it.
So we have the trailer on standby here. I think last week you saw the teaser. This is the full-blown trailer, and we'll talk about the casting. This is Shadow and Bone.
You're safe now. Tell me what happened in the fall. What saved you?
You won't believe me, but it was a sun summoner.
Is this true? Can you summon light? She's real. Our enemies are threatened by your mere existence.
the whole world will be after you.
The prize is 1 million Kruger. Bring me Alina Starkov.
Am I a prisoner?
All of Ravka is. Until you and I enter the fold and destroy it from within.
So no pressure.
Everyone is looking at me like I'm the answer.
Bring the light. Again.
The only thing more powerful than you or me. The two of us together.
Good girl. Now the work begins.
If it goes wrong,
I'll find my way back to you. How many bullets do you have?
Not enough. She'll realize she has only one equal. There are no others like us, and there never will be.
You have no idea how much larger a role you have to play.
Kill. Yeah. So you talk about the fact that there are these characters that aren't necessarily in this book, but that add to like the hunt.
I love them so much. We'll have to talk about them once we finish the trilogy because their story is separate in the books, but yes, Inej, Kaz, and Jesper are like, oh, they're so good. And we can talk a little bit about the world and the premise of that book. And then when we do our bonus episode talking about the show, we can break down all of that stuff. So I'm super, everyone, that's the thing is I thought about doing the first book and then the Crows book instead of us doing the whole trilogy, but there are spoilers for what happens in the trilogy. So, but I do recommend that everyone read those after we're done with the trilogy. So
Cool.
I'll talk about the trailer more.
That trailer was great.
We know about this movie. Happy with this?
Yes.
Whoa.
Dude,
Yeah.
That's them. That's the Crows. Yeah.
This is Jenya.
Yep.
Cool.
Happy? Yep.
Yeah, cool.
The opulence of the court.
Oh
also,
my
is
god.
that the king? Because he's perfect.
Barf.
Yeah.
Gross buffoon creep monster.
And all the kaftas.
Yeah.
This is obviously like being brought to court, meeting the king for the first time. Darkling looking dead. Oh, this is when he cuts her and the starlight bursts out. The rift, as we saw before, and Hector, your face when we first saw the rift, you were like, yeah.
Dope.
Also, I love her attitude so much. Just in the trailer where she's like, no pressure then.
Yeah. I know, so you're
Great. That's great.
This is in the hall, obviously meeting the king.
Ooh.
This is one of the
Just
got it. Is this Zoya?
Zoya.
This is like obviously when they're traveling around. Yeah, he looks pretty babe there. I have that nose. How interesting. And then this is getting the test done, isn't it?
The beginning when they're little. Yeah. Getting the test done.
He looks quite big.
Potentially.
Yeah. And then I saw in the trailer, Madam Hooch was in the trailer as
Bagra.
Bagra, yeah, which is also really great casting. And that actress always reminded me of Mindy Sterling, I think is the actress's name, from like the Austin Powers films and from a bunch of other stuff.
Oh,
Frau Fabissina, yeah. She's great.
Bring in the guards.
Oh boy.
We had a comment earlier. What do we read with this next book? Thank you, Nerdist, telling us this one. So we are going to start book 2, Siege and Storm. Read chapters 1 to 12. Stop at 13. And also make sure you let us know your thoughts on reading this book on Twitter. We got a hashtag Nerdist Book Club. Use that one. Or, of course, you can join the discussion on Geek Bombs Discord, where we talk about the book throughout the week. And there's a little spoiler section as well that we can use. Hey, speaking of, straight after this, we're going to head over to the after show, which happens on Geek Bombs Discord. To get access to that, though, you have to be a Patreon backer. Any tier gets you that access to not only reading, but playing and watching as well. And we talk about all that fun stuff. If you do that, you'll join the audio call. So jump on, introduce yourself if you haven't yet. We love new people. And everyone gets to ask a question, or you get to listen and comment along while Rachel, Hector, and I get deep with y'all. We get a bit deep, don't we? Don't we? And we didn't get to do it last week, so I'm so stoked that we'll be able to do it this week.
I know, it was sad.
Yeah,
I went into the chat and was like, hey, guys.
Can we talk?
We miss you.
Oh, that's sweet. So you all feeling good about Siege and Storm?
Pretty good. Darkling. Oops, we got to take a drink.
Oh, no. That's. I have not had a whole thing, but.
Mm-hmm.
See you guys next week.
I'm excited for y'all to read this one because it's my favorite.
I can't wait.
Alrighty. See you in the after show, everyone. Bye.
Bye.